Back with me for more on Biden's first year are former RNC chair Michael Steele, former national security spokesman for President Obama Tommy Vita, and former Bernie campaign co-chair Nina Turner. Tommy, the Democrats saw a 14-point swing in political party affiliation in 2021, according to Gallup, which calls that very rare. Americans went from preferring to identify as Democrats by 9 points to identifying as Republicans by 5 points. Look at that shift. How much does that worry you, and how much of that is on Joe Biden?
I mean, it's not good. I think it probably went from historic lows for the Republican Party when Trump walked out the door, having fomented an insurrection where people were killed in the U.S. Capitol, to, where we are today, which is people are just pissed. We are all sick of the pandemic. We're sick of the Omicron. We're sick of, not being able to see our friends and colleagues. We're sick of wearing masks. We're sick of the economy being weird, right? Like, we're just pissed off. And Joe Biden is going to catch the blame for a lot of that. So, the president is responsible for everything ultimately. Politically, people are going to blame you in office, whether you can control something or not. Something like gas prices, where historically the president has very little control over the price of gas. Look at what it did to, Jimmy Carter and other presidents before him. But, you have to kind of own it, and you have to do your best to show people that you're working and you're fighting for them. I think there's a path forward. Those numbers will go up and down. That's just sort of like how the political winds blow. I also think when the focus is on you, it's a lot harder than when the focus is a choice between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. That's where I think there's a lot more clarity, and you'll see those numbers move. But yeah, as we are right now, it's not great.
Yeah. Nina, Tommy makes an interesting point about Biden being the focus, about the attention being on Joe Biden. But that can work to a president's favor, too. They have the so-called bully pulpit. People do listen to them and not others. Do you think he wasted that bully pulpit in 2021? We saw him go to Atlanta this year at the start of the new year and give this pretty barnstorming speech. Are you on the side of Bull Connor and Governor Wallace or MLK and John Lewis? Why didn't he do that earlier? Where was the Joe Biden taking the fight to the Republicans on voter suppression? Where was the Joe Biden coming out against a filibuster in 2021? Do you feel like he wasted a lot of time chasing the Build Back Better stuff, the bipartisan infrastructure, all important economic stuff, but democracy?
Yeah, I do, Mehdi. I mean, it's one thing, definitely stand up for your agenda and try to get the Congress, which is a separate and equal branch of government, absolutely, to try to move your agenda. But when folks say that they don't want to work with you or show by their actions and their deeds that they're just not going to cooperate, you have to take it to the people. And so I do wish that this president had engendered more of the FDR spirit and just say to these folks, I welcome your hatred. What I am trying to do is stand up for the American people in an extraordinary time of crisis. Because let's make no mistake, these crises were here before he got there. They were here before Mr. Trump got there, and so on and so forth. But it is exacerbated by a pandemic. And you got to act like it. It's not enough to say, oh, we passed bipartisan infrastructure. Well, Big Mama can't feel that. She don't care about that. Big Daddy can't feel that either. So it don't matter, to talk about the job, that more people are employed and all of that. It doesn't matter if people don't feel it. So this president has to give people something they can feel, and he needs to use the carrot and the stick on these fools. Instead of going after Senator Bernard Sanders, he should go after Senators Manchin and Sinema.
Can you imagine FDR? You reminded FDR said, I welcome their hatred. That was FDR. Right now we have Dick Durbin goes on CNN and says, Joe Biden went too far in criticizing the Republicans. That's the disconnect we have right now between now and the 1930s. Michael, let's have a listen to what Joe Biden had to say about the midterm elections later this year. Have a listen.
Do you still believe the upcoming election will be fairly conducted and its results will be legitimate?
Well, it all depends on whether or not we're able to make the case to the American people that some of this is being set up to try to alter the outcome of the elections. The increase in the prospect of being illegitimate is in direct proportion to us not being able to get these reforms passed.
Michael, there's been a lot of cleanup done by Biden aides today in the media, including Karine Jean-Pierre on this show earlier, saying, no, he definitely thinks the results will be legitimate. I'm of the school of thought that says, why the cleanup? There is an argument to be made that if we don't fix these laws, if we don't push back at the state level, we won't have legitimate election results. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. But how you say that as president matters. The answer, the first word out of his mouth First two words were hell no. That's the first two answers. Hell no. This election is not going to be second guessed. The upcoming elections are not going to be an election that the American people can't trust in, because we've done these things, right? And lay out what those things are. That's why I'm fighting for the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. That's why I'm fighting for changing the Electoral College rules. So that's how you make the connection, but you always affirmatively make it very clear that the democratic process of voting in this country is sacrosanct. And as president, I appreciate that more than anything else. And I'm looking the American people in the eye and telling them that when you go to the polls this November, you will be able to trust the ballot that you cast, and relate it back to the work your administration is doing, all those democracy groups out there across the country are doing, pushing back on the big lie narrative and the efforts by Republicans in states like Georgia, Arizona, Pennsylvania, we know the list, that are trying to undermine that very democratic principle. So I think that's an effort. That's an example, again, where the president, I kind of knew where he wanted to go, but the conversation
he had a couple of attempts trying to answer that question. Tommy, we're almost out of time. 30 seconds for a huge subject. 30 seconds. How much do you think a crisis in Ukraine or even Taiwan could wreck year 2 of the Biden presidency?
I mean, if there is a major Russian invasion of Ukraine, it is going to be a massive global event that could change everything we do, we talk about, we think about going forward. I mean, it's kind of amazing to me, Mehdi, that we could be on the precipice of this happening, and it's not kind of an all-consuming news story just because there's so many other things going on. Yeah, something I worry about a lot. But, you know, it's again, I think Biden is doing all the right things. I think the press conference answer yesterday obviously required a little bit of cleanup and clarification. But even on that point, like, Putin knows that there's a range of things he could do and a range of responses. None of that was news to him. It's just, it gives people in Washington a talking point to try to blame Biden when or if he does something.
Like you, I'm less concerned about the gaffe yesterday about incursions and more concerned about actually what's going to happen on the ground. Tommy Vida, Michael Steele, Nina Turner, I wish we had more time. Fascinating conversation. Thank you for joining me this